Who is the single most annoying person you have ever encountered in your life? I know a guy who lies about literally everything for no reason. It absolutely bugs the heck out of me. Some of the lies are so mundane I don't understand what the point is. Then some are very horrific to attempt picking up women, involving fake deaths of family members and such. My coworker. He finds a way to talk about his achievements no matter the conversation. Anyone in the office. Hey, how's it going? Him. Great. Not as great as when I found out I got in the top 5% of the class. Then got on a journal and moot court. BTW, have I told you about my future career plans? I know a guy named Brett. He literally does the same thing. Only he also likes to bring up how he overcame a learning disability and went on to college. When I tried to relate to him on overcoming learning disabilities, he kept doing the yay but I, and one-upping me. This co-worker of mine made fun of me for wanting to be a doctor. I never told anyone I wanted to be a doctor, ever, because I don't. So now I am constantly made fun of for thinking I'm smarter than I am. Go get a doctorate. Jokes on them. I had to share a small office with this guy. For one thing, he always talked at a volume that might be appropriate if you were standing next to a jet engine, and frequently sneezed, which made it awkward when I was on phone calls. He was also incredibly nosy and took Dwight Schrute levels of joy in enforcing pointless, minor rules. He once wrote me up for a safety violation for having my car keys on my desk, because someone could have stolen my car, crashed it and hurt someone. He once tried to go over my division manager's head when she bought me a new chair because he thought it was not from an approved vendor, it was. Also, everyone hated this guy so much that they would only speak to him through me. I have never been so happy at someone's retirement party. He once wrote me up for a safety violation for having my car keys on my desk, because someone could have stolen my car, crashed it and hurt someone. Prepare for the worst is what I always say. Co-worker is 60 years old and honestly, one of the most vapid humans I have ever met. She is just clueless. I don't know why she even still has a job, as she does about 1/3 or less of the work of any other person on the team, and she makes the same mistakes over and over again on the work she does do. She also talks non-stop, complains about everything, and has a flair for the dramatic. One example of this, she fell while walking at work, just fell on the flat floor. Anyway, reported it through O&S, as she should, because she hurt her foot and was sent for x-rays. They said she was fine. She insisted she wasn't and would play up big time for attention at work. My work bestie swears she saw her nursing the wrong dang foot one time. Anyway, she ended up seeing an orthopedic surgeon and he basically told her she was completely fine and absolutely did not need surgery. She was going around work accusing the surgeon of being in cahoots with workers' compensation because they didn't want to pay for her surgery. We live in Canada. The surgery would have been 100% covered by provincial healthcare. I suspect she wanted a big payout from workers' compensation but didn't get one, as no doctor would sign off on her needing to miss any work. The list goes on and on with this lady, including the most annoying laugh ever. But I am on maternity leave and already raging just thinking about going back to work with her in a 6 months, so I will leave it at this. My Craigslist roomie. She goes in everyone's rooms when they are not home, takes up the whole fridge, likes to binge eat in the living room and not clean up the massive aftermath, guilt us into hanging out with her and constantly tries to get us to do things for her, sends passive-aggressive texts, broke my chair by sitting in it and tried to hide it. She also yells when she is on the phone, and she is always on the phone. She takes things, she lies, she harasses our landlord so they hate us. I work with a part-timer, 2 days a week, whereas I'm there 5 days a week, who likes to act as if she's the manager and tries to tell everyone what to do. She always complains about how messy the shop is from the second she walks through the door, yet sits on the stairs all day eating. She's also very religious, which I have nothing against, but she tries shoving it down your throat at any given chance. Frick her. Queen TMI was a co-worker who, for some reason, thought we were friends. She latched onto me like a remora, spilling her guts daily and telling me all about her dysfunctional home life, her daughters, her separation from her husband, her affairs with random gangbanger types, Her medical history. Sometimes she would cry at my desk. I would hide from her when I saw her coming. One day she told me I had an abortion over the weekend. She drove me insane to the point where people thought I was overreacting. When she was fired, I bought flowers for myself. Not sure about most ever, but currently, I sit next to this middle-aged woman who works in HR and her life is literally the hardest ever. Like it's just so hard. Everything. OMG, everything is so hard. Like everything. OMG, it's just so hard. What can she even do? It must be so hard on her if she sees you typing this. Poor woman. It can't be easy for her. OMG. There's a woman I work with who will insert herself in any and every conversation that happens within an earshot of her. Literally any conversation. And she can't stand it if the break room is silent. You can be in the corner of the room quietly eating your lunch and reading a book or looking at your phone, and she'll walk right up to you and start yapping. Oh, that looks good. Looks like Olive Garden. Is Olive Garden. I love their breadsticks. Ooh, what's that book about? Oh, I like your shoes. Steve has a similar pair. Have you seen Steve's shoes? They look just like yours. For the love of God, woman. Go away. You're ruining my break. A bore is someone who deprives you of solitude without providing you with company. Oscar Wilde. There is a guy that hangs out at a local tattoo shop and won't stop talking and telling stories. People tolerate it because he lost his wife and is lonely. It's really not that bad, just sorta bothersome. When you're getting ink you can't exactly leave. The shop I go to is open concept. We call him the Punisher. He thinks it's because he's a badass or something, but it's really because he actually punishes people. A girl I worked with. She was terrible at cashiering, which already made her annoying, but then she would do crap like practice her gloving at the register or just straight up disappear. Like B, you're the only cashier, you can't just leave. She was also 18 and stupid immature. She also used the phrase cuddle puddle a couple times and I somehow cannot get past that. Practice her gloving. I have no clue what this means, can someone please explain? My sister's mother-in-law. First, her voice. She has a little girl voice, and always talk like she's 8 or something, and she is the queen of backhanded compliment, and passive-aggressive comments. She also have clear favorites among her children and grandchildren, and isn't shy showing it. And finally, she is nosy and asks millions of invasive questions. And she isn't deterred by the fact that everyone answer her vaguely, or with joke answers. I really can't stand this woman, and I don't know how my sister does it. Fortunately, I only see her a handful of time a year. My teenage brother-in-law chews when he drinks. He used to dab all the time, but now he just says dab out loud instead. When I'm on Xbox Live, I get LFG notifications for Rocket League from him at least every 15 minutes. He sings tub thumping every time I see him. I'm lucky. He's the most annoying person I know, and he's really not that bad. Apologies in advance for rambling. Mine was a former co-worker who was in the top 5 dumbest creatures on 2 legs. Her highlights included: her cell ringtone was some guy yelling your phone is ringing. Pick up the phone, your phone is ringing. She shuffled her feet, and coincidentally got up to walk around every few minutes. She needed help with 98% of her daily work, so she'd get up, shuffle, see above, to our manager's desk, ask for help on whatever mundane task, then shuffle the long way back to her desk. The long way was taken to either A, see what everyone else was doing, nosiest person on earth, and or B, ask someone else the same question she had asked the manager. Her questions were the same most of the time, as she had zero retention, would send someone an IM, then promptly shuffle over to their desk and start with I just sent you an IM, then proceed with her idiotic questions. She had no sense of boundaries. She'd walk right into an office where people were talking, walking between the people involved and stand over the shoulder of the person behind the desk. She would go into the bathroom if she was looking for someone to ask for help. If she saw you in the parking lot getting out of your car, she'd ask questions despite knowing that you'd need to be at your computer to see what she was talking about. Here's one of her gems. She spent an hour calling her desk from her cell phone trying to figure out why there was a bell with a line through it on the display. Luckily, she was educated on what having the ringer off meant. Again, apologies for the length. Know a girl that only talks about horses. I'm sure you all know one as well. But she thinks I'm her best friend and that's all she talks about. No one ever shows any interest. Her last boyfriend literally said it's me or the horses and she chose the horses. I got randomly paired up with a couple of guys at a very expensive round of golf when I was on vacation in San Diego. He was your stereotypical New Jersey Guido. Super dark tan. Talked like he was gargling on a dong. Zero class. Very loud and absolutely no golf etiquette to speak of. The girl on the beer cart comes around and he immediately just starts laying lines on her heavy. Hey baby, you go to the gym today crap like that. I wanted to freaking vomit on this guy after about 3 holes of this crap. The guy legitimately ruined my day and I was stuck with him for 4 freaking hours on a golf course. My brother and I still make fun of this guy over 2 years later. I had a coworker that would several times an hour rub her armpits with her hands and then smell them. She'd even do it in meetings. Rub and sniff superstar. My sister-in-law. She's mid-20s but is socially stunted and acts like she's 14. She is a leech that lives on her parents' couch. They treated my husband like crap but she's the golden child, despite literally doing nothing but being a bee. If something is popular, she instantly has to rant about how much she hates it, even if she liked it before it became popular. There's non-stop swearing in daily convo which I never thought I'd think is an issue because no one else's swearing bothers me. But it's that she's a dang adult and swearing because it upsets her mom and she wants a reaction. She keeps saying she is going to move away to where her internet friends live. And please, be my freaking guest, leave. I feel like I'm dealing with a teenager. She basically was a pill the entire weekend we were all on vacation. And the cherry on top, we had to pay for our room at the Airbnb that his parents invited us to, but she didn't have to pay a dime. My husband just paid money for us to be pee all weekend and since the entire situation pisses him off, we got in a fight on the car ride back over something completely stupid that doesn't even matter right now. Every time we see them, it ends up in him verbally taking his anger out on me. I hate it and I hate her. We agreed to host Christmas this year and I think I'm going to back out because I'd like to at least enjoy one holiday this year. People who have to always turn crap around to look like victims. I have no time for that kind of bulls. They generally also lie all the time. God yeah, my ex and his family were like this. They lived out of a trailer that they rented and his mother sold some pyramid scheme product and she always said if she could just make a little more money she'd be okay. But then she dropped large amounts on her MLM. Got one coworker who doesn't shut the frick up, like ever. Add to that, I work in a small office, so everyone can hear him when he speaks. He's also a massive Alex Jones fan and feels it's his God-given mission to spread the word of Jones and Jesus to all the interns. The rest of us tell him to frick off. We lack any sort of HR and the bosses treat him like a performing monkey so they are amused by his antics. Except when he starts stalking some of our clients trying to get a date and they tell him to cool it. How we are still in business, I will never know. People who know the least, know it the loudest. Oof, where to start? He was late for literally everything we ever planned. Usually 45 minutes, but occasionally up to an hour and a half. We missed several events because I made the mistake of asking him to drive. He would baby talk to my cats. Normally something like that wouldn't be a big deal, but he did it incessantly. It got to the point where I finally asked him to stop. I even apologized for even asking because I didn't want to be in butthole, but it was genuinely making me anxious. He responded by doing it more and smirking when he did. When we would hang out, at least 50% of the time he was complaining about his girlfriend, his job, his mother, etc. Most of the things he complained about were clearly his fault, but he was incapable of seeing it. He was 6 feet 5 inches, 350 pounds, and had long black hair down to his butt, and yet he would still wear a top hat. We see you, goth grimace, settle down. If we would watch a movie, he would always fall asleep during it, even if it was in the theater. Speaking of watching movies in the theater, we went to see the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and a mother with a young girl sat in front of us. My friend had a tendency to laugh like a drunk Viking when something even slightly amusing happened, so his voice was echoing around the theater for the entire movie. When he was awake, After one of his monster barks, the little girl turned around to look at him. He leaned in close to her and growled, "Do you have a problem?" I felt bad for him because he clearly struggled with some issues, so I maintained the friendship for clearly too long. The final straw came when he freaked out on me, came to my home, and beat the door so hard I felt the building shake from the second floor. In the back of the building. It's been more than 12 years at this point, and I still pull an ex-girlfriend when I see him in public, and I duck behind whatever I can to avoid him. My Mill, you can tell her that the sky is blue, and she'll correct you with the same exact thing you just said. No, actually, the sky is blue. Blue is the color of the sky. The sky is blue. Actually, it's blue. Conversations with her range between tedious and infuriating. Same here, but my Mill will also add that there is some study about how the sky could give you cancer, then tell a story about herself that's vaguely correlated to the sky. It's exhausting. When I was a section leader in band, I had a member that was intolerable. Looking back, he likely had some mental issues. He was a pale white, scrawny guy. He had lived in Mexico for a while, and from I could tell, a relatively decent area, not one rampant with cartel influence. He never clarified completely. He liked to act as though he was a super tough gangster about 1/4 of the time, including threatening people who looked in his direction. Another 1/4 of the time he was trying to share his drawings of medieval weaponry and how cool he thought they were. Then, 1/4 of the time he would get very preachy about non-violence and peace, seemingly forgetting that he threatened to cut someone the day before, or his discussion of a medieval lance 2 days before. The rest of the time he was just oblivious to the world, which made keeping him on the same page for practice ridiculously taxing. As a high schooler, and having a crappy band teacher, it was extremely annoying to deal with. The worst though, was the time right before a competition he leaned in and whispered something to me. We were just off the stage, so leaning in and whispering was normal. Then, and even now, I have no idea what he said. His breath was the single most disgusting smell I had ever encountered. It was like rotten meat fermented in pickle juice left in the sun. It was so bad, I literally grabbed a timpani so that I wouldn't fall over and vomit. On top of all of that, he thought was he flawless. So, when I pointed out that he played something wrong, or was out of sync, fast, slow, etc., he'd either say it's all good or freak out yelling. We have this girl in our circle, let's call her Bella. Now, Bella is fine if you hang out with her alone. If you hang out with her in a group, she has to be the smartest one there. She will let you know that she's far superior than everyone else because she used to live in Switzerland. She can speak French, and that she's pursuing a degree in the STEM field. She's coming back from summer abroad this week and she asked me to get coffee with her. I don't mind her, but I'm really hoping it's just the two of us. The way I deal with people like this is to use the phrase "how nice for you." If said correctly, it's a great way to say nobody cares without sounding too much like a douche. My previous boss, she's a self-proclaimed God-loving Christian woman and perfect mom and wife. Yet, she lies about everything. She's cheated on her husband and flirts her way into everything. Everybody loves her. I really don't understand why, because it's all fake. Roommate in college. Constant one-upper. You did something. Well, he did it better, while multitasking, with a migraine. Completely lacked any sense of personal space when it came to others and their things. 2. You have a laptop? Let me use it. 2. My desktop? Breathe in its general direction and die. Overwhelmingly clingy to me as I was the only person who put up with his crap, solely because we shared a dorm room. If I had to leave to go to the library, he'd follow. If I went straight there after class, he'd wander into the library 15 minutes after me and plop down next to me. Very condescending to anyone and everyone. Sanctimonious as all heck. Not only was he better at doing everything, but he was also more moral. Even if he did something crappy, it was done out of goodness. The only reason I didn't just move rooms was because the guy was the single greatest proof that karma existed and was exacted upon the deserving. His life was a veritable train wreck into a sewage plant, and entirely due to his actions and his toxic personality. He also helped bring the dorm floor together through our collective shared annoyance. Dang, dude, tell us more about that karma. Nowhere near as serious as some of the comments I read. But this girl in my middle school would always say hi to me, no matter how many times she'd already said it. Example, I was sitting on the bench with my friend and she says hi. I say hi back to be nice and 2 minutes later, she walks back and says hi. One time my friend said that she waited in the cafeteria just to say hi to me. I tried avoiding her, but to no avail. Sadly, I heard she's been in a coma since late 2017. When she gets out of it she'll probably say hi to you. My stepmother when growing up was a very abusive, mean and haughty piece of work. Some members of her family were okay, but her mother was the same. Her mother had, for whatever reason, seeing as how he was treated, a special needs kid, a boy who was maybe around 12 when I was 14/15. His mother expressed no interest in him, since she was a selfish addict and he quite possibly had a diagnosis, my best guess being ADHD or Asperger's, or both. Anyway, they treated him like absolute crap. Sure, he was annoying as all heck. He would never sit still in any one place for more than a few seconds and he would say wildly inappropriate things, but he was just a kid who deserved love like any other kid. His foster mom would scream at him and forcefully make him sit down to eat. This family definitely had a tough love policy regarding raising children. Despite me feeling sorry for him then and now, he was the single most annoying person of my childhood. He would follow me everywhere, ask me to play with him constantly, hit me, scream at me, cry and lie and tug and pull until I followed him around. And since my stepmother and her mother hated me and loved to annoy the kids in their family, they just laughed it off with a sort of "oh, he just fancies you" attitude. You guys have no idea how hellish those years were. So many vacations, outings, afternoons, evenings, spent at my stepmother's family's place and he was always there, ready to pounce. It was even worse because I'm mildly autistic and very sound sensitive and reserved. I've always enjoyed relaxing nearby the adults a lot more than being forced into playing with screaming kids younger than me. This kid riddled me with anxiety because his behavior would embarrass me. He would pull me into his boy den of filth and drool over my hands. No, literally, he had his head over my hands after he shoved the PS2 controller into them. Scream "let's frick" in front of other people, to their endless amusement. WTF. And tug, pull, scream, harass. I'm certain some of my tinnitus today is due to his screaming. All this crap ended when I was 16. 16. TLDR. 12-year-old kid harassed, teased and screamed at me and the adults in my life forced him upon me, even though I repeatedly told them I didn't like being near him. Jesus Christ. I hope you are out of that heck. I have a brother who wasn't tested for anything despite everyone else being tested. He is the most obnoxious, annoying piece of crap that I have met in all the years of my life. If it wasn't for him my family could be described as somewhat functional. I know a guy who will argue with you about everything. You could both be looking at the same object that is definitely 100% red, and he'd find a way to try and argue that it wasn't actually red. I've had to tell him more than once to stop talking and walk away from me because, though I'm not a violent person, I don't know how much longer I can remain that way. He also perpetually spells the same word wrong in every text he sends, even though we've all told him it's wrong and he knows it's wrong. A guy exactly like this used to be into me, and when I told him why it's never gonna work out between us, because he argues about everything and anything, he started arguing with me about why he thought differently. Block that number. My ex-Mill. She was just the worst type of middle-aged entitled suburban mom ever. Constantly complained, constantly unhappy. She treated every restaurant server and every retail worker like garbage. She hated me, and vice versa. Best thing that came out of the divorce is that I never have to see her again. My ex's family disowned my son after the divorce and I've never been sad about that. An ex's cousin. Holy heck. A 45-minute car ride, and she spends the entire drive going over what she described as her secret blueberry pie recipe that only she knew. Every ingredient, every step, down to the specific brand of sugar and the best store to buy it at. Near the end of the car ride, she says, and I'll never forget this, she says, but if you can't remember the recipe, just look on the back of the pie mix box. That's where I got the recipe and I nearly jumped out the window. There was this guy I knew who was at the intersection of so incredibly many unfortunate personality traits. He was a near compulsive gamer and very gaticky about it. If anybody, especially a girl, mentioned a game around him, he immediately would start grilling them about nonsense. Then declare they weren't a real gamer because they didn't remember what color the armor on the main character's left elbow happened to be or whatever. Think of any cliche: a clueless, white, straight, upper class, sheltered, socially awkward stereotype of a dude could utter, and he probably has said or defended it in public at some point. Everything from since slavery ended, reverse racism has taken over to you triggered. Snowflake. Thankfully, he was out of my life by the time the last presidential campaign picked up steam, but I would have been totally unsurprised to see him in a MAGA hat. He was always complaining about how he had trouble dating because we are so shallow. They don't like me because I'm short, as though his personality was not birth control enough. He also made absolutely zero effort in his appearance. He showered maybe once a week, would only wear novelty tees, mostly a size too small, so he had at least 2 inches of beer belly hanging out, and cargo shorts, chewed with his mouth open, and would openly scratch his balls and butt crack in public. He also had a horrible nasally voice, but not much he could have actually done about that. The one girl who for some reason showed interest in him despite all this, he rejected because she wasn't hot enough. I had to put up with this douche for almost 2 years because my friends loved having him on their team and LOL. Turns out, when you dedicate a minimum of 8 hours a day of gaming, you tend to get pretty good. I eventually stopped hanging out with that group because I was so freaking done with that kid in particular. I had a friend who was like high plat that was insufferable and toxic as heck, yet somehow he always ended up in the group games. No life and all league makes for some awful character defects. Seth. He was a notorious snitch and pronounced his L's with W's, so it was always I'm chewing. Had a face that looked like Speedy Gonzales but with a ring of crust around his lower lip upper chin. At all times, would interrupt class with his little snitch reports and was rewarded for it. Teacher would be reading out loud and all of a sudden Wikwawanch and Twavis are talking out loud to each other. Just looked him up on Facebook. Thanks to this thread, looks like he turned out to be a great guy with a lovely looking family. Seems as though we have the same political views. Rides dirt bikes, ATVs and roots for a lot of the same sports teams. But frick him. Seth sort of sounds like someone who might be mentally disabled. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.